Yeti spaghetti.
Spaghetti. If I'm being, what's that lady's name? On the Food Network.
Oh, yeah, her.
What's her name? Um, Something Italian.
The one who says all the words
Yeah.
regularly.
Spaghetti.
If you know, let us know because we're live. Hi there, Tackler. Welcome to Disney Deep Dive, where each week we dive into the history, story, and details of the Disney parks. I am Leah, joined by
Your intriguing, adventurous tour guide into the mountains of the unknown. Will we see a Yeti? We don't know. Maybe. Maybe he'll move. Maybe he won't. I'm Stefan. And today we're taking a deep dive into Expedition Everest.
yes, which is officially called
Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain.
but we all call it Expedition Everest. So we are going to chat all about it. But before we get into it, we do have a teeny tiny bit of housekeeping.
Giada De Laurentiis.
That's it. I
That's
kept
her
thinking
name.
Barefoot Contessa. We love, fun fact, we love the Food Network. Anytime we're at a hotel, we geek out and watch Food Network together, and we love watching all those kind of cooking and baking
This is
shows.
not a Food Network show.
No, this is
but
not a Food Network show, but
fun
Yeti
tangent.
spaghetti. Yeah, that's also a kid's game, and it rhymes, and it's fun.
It's a kid's game.
Yeah, the Yeti and my spaghetti. We don't own it. We own a lot of games, but we don't own that one.
Interesting.
But teeny tiny bit of housekeeping. If you are here, yay, thank you, you found us. I did do a post on Instagram yesterday and just now, but we switched from Wednesday nights. We did the first 6 episodes Wednesday nights. Hi, Gigi. Gigi is live in the comments. If you're watching the replay, we will read some of the live comments. Happy to see your face. Oh, well, we're happy to see you too, Gigi. But we were going live on Thursday, or we were going live Wednesdays at 9. Now we will be going live Thursdays. That's today. Thursday, Friday Eve at 8. And that is because our kids started school again and it was working better in our schedule to do Thursdays. So that's what we're doing for now. And if it ever changes, we will always try to let you know. The best way is Instagram, which I am LeahTackles.
Small World Shirts Go.
Yep, they're always linked. We'll let you guys know. But thank you so much if you're joining live. If you're watching the replay, we thank you as well. Be sure to leave comments and we will respond to you. All right.
All right, so getting into it. Expedition Everest is a mountain-themed steel roller coaster that opened in 2006 at Disney's Animal Kingdom. The full name, like we said in the beginning, is Expedition Everest, Legend of the Forbidden Mountain. And there's a reason for that. We will get into it later.
Yes.
So, starting with the initial concept of the ride. When Animal Kingdom opened, actually, you know what? We skipped something. What is your personal involvement with this ride?
All right. Well, it's funny because we skipped it, and my personal involvement is nothing. I think that the Yeti is really cool. I think all the Yeti merch is really cute. I went to Animal Kingdom the year that it opened, did not ride it. It wasn't there when I was it there when I was there?
When did you go?
The first year it was opened.
No,
it wasn't
was
there.
not there
Okay.
yet.
And then we went again. I've only been to Animal Kingdom 2 times, believe it or not. And the second time that I went was with him and our kids, and they were all very young. I think that they would like it now, but or at least Haley would. But yeah, so I have never been on it, but I do love all the Yeti merch, and I love roller coasters.
So for me, I've never been on it either. When I went to Animal Kingdom the first time, it was not even open yet. It was part of a special preview thing that my parents had gotten us on. So a lot of stuff wasn't open. I think the only real ride we went on was the dinosaur ride.
Yeah.
And Expedition Everest was not even a blip in anyone's mind yet. So it wasn't there. When we went with our kids, didn't ride on it, but this ride does hold a special place in my heart because, and actually this was a lot of fun researching because I got to watch, and now little history on me, back in the day when I lived at home and watched a lot of satellite TV, I love to watch the History Channel and Discovery Channel, and I love to watch stuff like Modern Marvels and like these like the making of sort of things. There was a show on Discovery, I think it was, that was called like Movie Magic, where they showed you like behind the scenes of like different movies and like modern like movies and films and stuff.
Which he still likes. I mean, we both do, but you still really like
still
all
really
that stuff.
enjoy that stuff. And there was a Discovery Channel show about the making of this ride. And I actually watched it again. It's like 40 some odd minutes long. I watched it on YouTube to research for this because they have a lot of good info in there. But I watched it back in the day when it originally aired. So I always wanted to ride on this roller coaster. I never did. And when we went back with kids, I didn't because it would have been weird for me to be like, hey, everyone hang out here. I'm going to go on this ride all by myself. So I need to ride it someday because I really want to, and it looks really cool.
If you would have, that would have been fine. And this is another thing. Is he's one of those, he doesn't like to inconvenience people. Not that I'm looking to, but sometimes it happens. And
but I mean, with 3 kids, it's like, hey, hang out with our 3 kids. I'm going to go ride on this ride.
Now
that
we
old
really
enough that we
could. Yeah, which is exciting. We just have kind of found out our youngest is still a little unsure, and he's 4. He's a big 4-year-old though. But our older 2 do, which is really exciting.
Yes.
We have someone else live, and I haven't been on it either. I'm not a roller coaster
girl,
fan.
are you from Oklahoma? Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know. It's like, is that your mom? Stefan's mom loves Oklahoma.
She lived in Oklahoma for a while. Anywho, getting into the ride itself. So when Animal Kingdom opened on April 22nd, 1998, it was a hit. Everyone loved it. I loved it. But in the following years, attendance was starting to drop. So it started out super popular, and then over like a course of like 3-4 years, I think, it just wasn't generating the crowds they thought it would, which is not good for a new park. So Disney started looking into ways of how to bring the crowds back. Now, there is a whole part of this story that I'm just going to briefly mention about Beastly Kingdom, where they initially looked into that concept and how that didn't work out. That is a whole nother story. We might cover it sometime.
Yeah.
A lot of it's very interesting.
It is fascinating. You could go off so many, and I mean, these have been detailed, all the ones that we've done and the things that we've researched, but you could go into so many different directions with so many things. So if you're ever curious about a specific thing, let us know, because there's tons of info out there.
Yeah, but I don't want to get into a big tangent on this because it'll take up half the show. But so they had thought about that, but then when that didn't turn out to be realistic, or that something that they weren't going to do, they decided, okay, we need to come up with something else. So they got a team of Imagineers together. It was led by Joe Rohde. Now, Joe Rohde, he was the lead designer for Animal Kingdom. If you don't know who he is, if you've ever seen any Imagineers ever, he is the one with the big dangly earring off his ear. Very recognizable.
Yeah, you see him a lot, and they will have it, even if you're not researching for Disney deep dives, you will see it a lot in those little interviews about rides, and I knew who he was.
And he is also the guy who in Tower of Terror, I can't remember his name, but the guy who like supposedly like owned the tower or something like that. It's based on him. The painting is based on him. So anyway, prolific Imagineer, involved in all sorts of stuff. Very talented guy. Like I said, lead designer for Animal Kingdom. And at its opening, Animal Kingdom did not have any roller coasters. The closest thing they had, like I said in the beginning, was Countdown to Extinction, or Dinosaur, the ride.
Yep.
And that was more of just like a dinosaur-themed Pirates of the Caribbean, because it's like that boat that goes through.
And it's interesting because we've had people, recently say, and I know one of my friends, actually she has a YouTube channel. She's great, Diana, being Mommy with Style, but her husband, till a few years ago, they would go to the parks every year, and he was like, I don't want to go to Animal Kingdom. Like, we go to zoos all the time. And it's like, people don't understand, but really, until they added more rides.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot there. It had less attractions than any other park on its opening, like comparatively. So, and the reason for that really is just because animals cost a ton of money to take care of. So there was a lot of money involved in just opening the zoo and maintaining it and having it be the experience that it was. So
yeah, it's not a zoo, but I know what you mean.
I mean,
yeah,
it's a zoo. It's the best zoo ever, but it's a zoo.
Okay.
So they had all this money invested in that, and they had to come up with something to draw people into the park itself. So Joe, along with the other Imagineers, started coming up with ideas. They threw around concepts like a sort of a Soarin' type ride, almost like, last week we talked about the simulator rides in Star Wars. They were thinking about that, or Star Tours. They were thinking about like a simulator ride, another roller coaster that was more of like a dragon mythical creature themed sort of thing. But then when the whole beastly kingdom
Yeah.
got nixed, they kind of got rid of that. So then at some point someone said, okay, well,
What does well?
what does well around here? We don't have a mountain.
Hmm.
Let's have a mountain ride because Disney has a ton of mountain
And we love
rides
them all.
or mountain themed rides.
Yeah. Mountain themed coasters.
Yeah. So it was sort of the obvious choice. Now, initially, Joe Rohde wasn't all about this. He was more along the lines of let's come up with something new. But Michael Eisner said, like, listen, I don't know the exact conversation, but I imagine went something like mountain themed rides do great. It's a tried and true formula. We need to go with this. Just do it. And he was convinced at that point. Um, so it's sort of a Matterhorn 2 almost because,
Hmm.
and I couldn't find this anywhere, but I did find a lot of references to the Matterhorn, and I think it probably has a lot to do with that because what they were trying to do was draw a lot of people into the park.
Yep.
They're trying to get more attendance. Now, when the Matterhorn first opened in Disneyland in, I don't have the year apparently, but when it opened, it boosted attendance for the park just because of that ride. With, the mountain theme and the snowman that they had in there, it was something that people wanted to see, they wanted to come interact with,
Hmm.
and it did the job. So they probably were looking at it going, okay, well, people love that. We can do it way better now. Let's just
It
do
gives it a
that.
story. It gives it merch opportunity. Like instead of just being a mountain coaster, it
Yeah.
gives it a Yeti. It gives it a story.
It's a
People.
familiar thing, but it's a
Yes.
new thing, and no one has ever called it Matterhorn 2, like officially.
Professionally,
That's just
yeah.
what I'm calling it because it seems like that's probably what they were thinking.
Hmm.
So they start going with this idea of a mountain with a Yeti or an abominable snowman, and they start building the story from there. So to make sure that they were developing something that was authentic, because they wanted it to be themed to the land. Animal Kingdom is a sort of a foreign type land, like you're traveling somewhere new. They wanted it themed to the place that it was coming from. So Joe Rohde and several other Imagineers traveled to Mount Everest. They traveled to that area to kind of take in not just the mountain, but the villages around the area. They
Yep.
wanted to look at the architecture and the culture and the history. They wanted to learn about like the beliefs the people had about the Yeti, because there it is it's a thing. It's a real thing. It's like people in America being like, "Oh, Bigfoot's real."
Hmm.
There are people who are like, "The Yeti's real." So they're looking, but it's more ingrained in the culture, I think,
Oh, I'm gonna hop over to live chat. 1955, I believe.
for the
As Chichi said.
Matterhorn.
Matterhorn. Okay.
Um,
Thanks.
so yes, thank you. So they're exploring this area. They're getting all of this information, all this knowledge to bring back with them. And then they're also buying lots and lots of
Hmm.
things to bring back with them.
Yeah.
Ultimately, they brought back over 8,000 different pieces to be used for not only research, but actually put into the queue of the
Which
ride
is so
itself.
cool because they're authentic. And that's one of my favorite things about Disney is that, people talk about the Disney bubble when you're on the resort property and stuff, but it's even the Disney bubble when you're in line. Like when you go to Cedar Point or Six Flags, you're in just a random queue with ropes and chains. When you're in a line at Disney, it isn't like that. It's part of the experience, and that makes it really special.
So they bought things like the statues that you see; those are all authentic, all real statues. But they also bought random stuff that you would never think of, like scissors, egg baskets, teapots, and in one instance, they actually bought a year's worth of these hand forged nails. So anytime you're in the queue and you see like pictures hung with these like big bulky looking nails, those are actually real
So cool.
hand forged nails from the area, and they bought they basically bought this guy's entire supply. So he was probably really happy after
Yes.
that.
Okay, I'm hopping back to the live chat. Gigi, who is a great friend who watches all the time with us and joins us. 1959, correction, sorry. Don't be sorry, Gigi. We appreciate you commenting so much. And if you're watching live or on the replay, let us know questions, corrections, anything like that. And always check the info bar because we're really good about if we have to add things, we'll do it there.
So with all this information at the ready, they gathered. I don't know how much time they spent there. It seemed like quite a while, but they got as much as they could possibly hold on to. And they came back and they had the story basically nailed down by the time they got back.
Nailed down. Get it? Can you imagine going through security at the airport? Where you're like,
Actually,
just
yeah,
a little ride research. Maybe they shipped it.
Or they had all private. But you still have to come through customs, maybe.
I don't know.
But yeah, if you're coming back with like egg baskets and teapots and scissors, I'm sure they're like, what is this for? And you're like, we're making a ride. Not suspicious at all. So they had the story nailed down, and then they had to start designing the ride itself, the mountain itself. So the ride is actually 3 separate structures with their own foundations, like intertwined with one another. If you were to cut it in half, you would see there is like the foundation for the Yeti animatronic that it sits on, the foundation for the coaster track, and then the foundation for the mountain itself, which is just a bunch of rock and concrete and plaster. So, and it's not like there's like one here, one here, one here. It's all intertwined and mixed together. In that documentary that I watched, the Discovery one, they show a shot of it like from the base, and it's literally like they're 6 inches apart.
Yeah.
Like all these different beams that are connecting to different things. So it's this giant interconnected web of foundations to build this entire thing. So while designing the mountain, 24 different concepts were created before a final design was chosen. So they went through a lot of different ideas. In one video I saw, the ride was going to have like kind of like how the Matterhorn is, and this is where I got a lot of like the Matterhorn connection. They were going to have it coming out of the mountain, like the coaster coming out and then going back in, which would have been thrilling. But as Joe Rody explained, it kills the perspective for the person on the outside, because if the idea was they wanted it to look like this giant towering mountain,
right?
So they used a lot of forced perspective tricks, and if the coaster's coming in out of the mountain the entire time, it ruins the effect. So they nixed that. They went through a lot of different ideas, and eventually they finally came up with one single idea. I don't know what the 24 other versions looked like, but they definitely nailed it down to one. So once the final design was chosen, they created a digital version of it to like map out the ride itself. And as far as I know, this is the first time they ever did this.
Well, yeah, you take it back. This was late 90s.
98?
Yeah.
I think, or
well, when they were doing
98
this,
it was opened. It was 2002 when they were doing this, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, still very, very early. But they mapped out the entire thing digitally on a computer, so that they had a computer model of it to work off of. Now, this did a few things for them. They were able to work a lot faster than traditional roller coaster building techniques, and much more efficiently. So they were able to like move it through the track, see where things would work, see where it wouldn't work. There's a lot of math involved, things that I don't comprehend or understand at all. But it made it so that they could work much, much faster than usual. Okay, I already mentioned the foundations. So after they had the entire thing designed, they had to actually start building it. Once actual construction began, they ran into one major issue, which was how do we access the side of the mountain? Because they had to build, like I said before, perspective was very important here because they wanted it to look giant. So they had to be able to like stand back and look at the thing as a whole and assess how it was going to like how they had to change this and that to make it look the way they wanted it to. Now with traditional scaffolding, if you know how scaffolding works, it just goes up. And the way this mountain was, you know, it's a mountain. It so goes up and it
curves and moves.
It moves all up like a mountain. So traditional scaffolding would have just blocked the whole thing in. They would not have been able to see it. They wouldn't be able to see the angles and how things were looking. Major problems. So what do? They create their own version of scaffolding
so cool.
to deal with this problem. Now, and this is one of many things they did to deal with issues where they just invented a new way to do things. So when they were building the skeleton, because it all starts with a steel skeleton, they built it, but then you imagine they have the skeleton and then they have these what they call toothpicks coming off of all of the beams. So it's like a porcupine. It's got little spikes coming off of it everywhere. And all they did was they extended these beams outward from where the wall face was planned to be.
Right.
So on these beams, they set up their own scaffolding so that it hugged the mountain basically. So it's all around the entire mountain. You can still see it if you stand away because these are still taking the shape of the mountain itself. And you can see within it too because they're more open. Now, the other thing that these toothpick scaffolding things allowed them to do was something that they ended up calling the chip method. Because when you look at this mountain, you think, okay, it looks like rock. Like, how do they do that? It looks like
It looks like a mountain.
picked up a mountain and brought it in and then dug it out.
Yep.
Well, what they did is they used the same computer simulation they used to design the ride to design these things called chips, which were about 6 foot by 6 foot sections, composed of re-rod that they designed to look like a rock face. So it's like basically imagine a square that looks all like rough.
And imagine
rocky.
that 6 foot by 6 foot. And I mean, keep going, but that part I had to keep thinking about. I'm like, I picture Stefan's 6 feet tall. So I'm like, okay, and then by 6 foot, that's not that big.
So yeah, so they took this entire giant mountain they designed in 6 foot by 6 foot sections, and they did the entire thing. And so it worked like a puzzle where they had to fit everything together. So these chips would also slide over top of these bars and then fit into place. So they built basically a giant jigsaw puzzle to put this thing together.
It's really
which
that's
is
it.
insane, and it seems super complicated. But with the aid of the computers and everything, I'm sure it made it much easier. But still, to actually
Very
then
time-consuming.
put it together and make it work on time, yeah, it's crazy. So what they did is they took these chips, they put them in place. When they were in place, they would cover them in concrete and plaster, and then mold them from there. So a lot like in our Little Mermaid
Yes.
episode, we talked about how they would spray the concrete, let it dry a little bit, and then carve it into more of a rock shape. They did this here as well, but a few of the other things they did is to get that really like rocky look. And we're talking extreme detail on something that you're not going to really see close up ever, unless you're looking at it through a camera lens or something. But when it was like mostly dry, they would take tinfoil and lay the tinfoil onto the concrete and like mold it with the tinfoil and then remove it so that
give
it
it
had
that-
that really rough, natural looking rock face, and then
So
further
cool.
carve it from there.
So
So the attention to detail on this was insane. Like no one's ever going to be standing on this mountainside. Like no one is meant to be there, but they're still with every inch making that attention to detail to make it look like it's an actual piece of rock on this mountain.
Disney deep dive. All in the details. We find out week
Yeah,
after week, but it
exactly.
really is
It's
true.
all in the details, always.
And you're 6 man. My bad. Didn't mean to tell these lovely people.
Well, it depends on which grocery store I'm walking out of.
Well, because which grocery store?
Well, they have those the height things when you walk out for the cameras. So in case you steal something, they can be like, he's 5'8".
How did I not know that they have those at grocery
Maybe
stores?
maybe it's just like a convenience store thing. I don't know. I think they have them at Walmart.
Let us know down below. Did you know? Unrelated at Walmart. Okay.
So that was the mountain
I'll have to look
itself.
for that next time.
Just a ton of work. When you look at it, it seems well. And then also with those things that were sticking out, what they did at the end is when they were done building that section, they would cut the bars off and then cover those up. So when you look at this thing, I mean,
It looks like a piece.
yeah. So it looks like a giant, complete mountain. And they cover the tracks completely. Like basically, someone looking at this who has no idea how it was built would look at it and go like, "How did they do this?" Because you can't. They covered all the tracks. You can't see what they did. And it's amazing when you see like how they came up with these methods to make this look the way it looks with the attention to detail that they had. So moving into the Tibetan village. So the queue, when you initially go into it, it's this village area that's taking you through like the beginning of the story, basically. Giving you, I guess, tidbits about the Yeti and the village and the area, and just establishing the mood and everything as it always does. So much detail in this village. It's insane. Like the amount of time and just care and thought put into this is crazy. We already mentioned all the items that they brought back to be used there, but the structures themselves, the buildings and things, are just a feat of imagineering. It's crazy. A lot of them are built to be like lopsided, so to look like they've been there for a long
Like
time.
they're kind of falling apart and like falling
Yeah,
into
yeah, like the foundation is
the
settling
foundation.
into
That's
the
what I was looking for. There
ground.
you go.
So not only do they have to build it to look lopsided, but you have to build it to look lopsided while still being up to code.
And being safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
while still being safe. So they built it to look that way, but they still had to make it so that it was a safe thing that you could walk through and they wouldn't violate any rules or anything. So just a ton of work put into that. Um, the colors on the outside of the buildings all have significance. And this is all stuff that they pulled straight from their research when they were over exploring the entire area.
Mm-hmm.
They said that the corners of the buildings and like important like door frames and stuff are painted in red because culturally that is it means like a safety thing. It makes it's supposed to like I don't know what it does. It prevents
Yeah, it's part of their beliefs
damage
or
or
their
something.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just a nice. They always have that continual like.
Yeah,
They're
those
not.
details added
Mhm.
in. And then there are areas that are painted in
And they're
black.
accurate.
And that is supposed to be that the black is supposed to hold in heat, I think, is what they said, or maybe it was to hold in the cold air. So anyway, it's supposed to hold in something. So all these little details that we would never notice, and in fact, when you see it, you're just like, oh yeah,
Looks cool.
it looks
Mm-hmm.
cool. Don't know what it means, but it all has actual meaning behind it. Um, the coaster car that you ride in. So when you
Yeah.
get into the actual ride itself, it's made to look like a steam engine, like a vintage old train, because the idea was that you're basically stepping back in time when you go here, and then you get in the steam engine. And the steam engine is what is taking you up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they couldn't actually build a steam engine as a roller coaster, so to get the effect that it is a steam engine, the first car first of all looks like it's a
Yeah, it
train.
looks like a train.
And when you get into it, there's steam everywhere. Of all the POV shots I saw and everything,
Yes.
you get in, there's steam all over the place. It's filling the area like an old school train station. And that steam is actually pumped in from outside of the track. So they have like a tub thing outside that heats it, and it's not water. I didn't read what it was, but it wasn't water because they didn't want it to rust everything, so they would have to maintain it.
Yeah, it's
So
kind of a special effect thing, like
yeah,
maybe from. I don't know. That's
I don't know
interesting.
what it would be, but they pumped something in. So it pumps in and it makes all the steam effect. It comes out from under the track to make it look like it's coming from the train itself.
Mhm. Could be like those things that they use in haunted, like when you go through like haunted houses and stuff, and they do have like
Like a
this.
fog machine sort of
Mhm.
thing.
But I mean, not just that, but something like that where it's
Yeah.
safe for everyone, of course. But yeah,
Yeah, so I don't know what it is they use, but they use something to give the steam effect. So.
yeah,
Um, Now, this is also a fun fact. The very first roller coaster to ever go both forwards and backwards.
which is incredible. I mean, that's another thing that's just think about that, the first ever.
Because so as you're going through the ride, if you've never been on it before, you've never seen
A million
the
point of
POV,
yeah.
you go through the ride, and then at one point you get up to a broken part of the track. The track is all like curled up and like
Yes.
it looks like the Yeti grabbed it and like tore it to pieces and everything. And you stop, and if you don't know what's going to happen, you're like, okay, what happens from here? Because roller coasters don't go backwards. Like
Other rides, and that's we should say that other rides do, but roller coasters are different.
at this point, I'm sure well, yeah, other rides do.
yeah,
And at this point, I'm sure there are other roller coasters that do something like this, but this was the first one ever. So if you rode this back in the day when it first opened,
Brand
you weren't
new.
expecting this at all because
Yeah.
you go up to it. And we've explained how roller coasters work in the past, where the majority of this ride is a gravity ride where you go up and then you go down and then you move around and gravity is pulling you.
yeah. We talked about that. If you want to watch on our Space Mountain episode,
Yes. So when you get to this point, you just stop, and then you go backwards, and then you go forwards again onto a different track. Now the way they did this is they used a what do you call it?
oh yeah, we had that
Track switch.
Yep.
Duh. It's a track switch, which trains use all the time. To switch different tracks from here and there. If you've ever played with toy trains, like I did when I was a kid, you had a lot of them. So what they did is they had these track switches flown in. They weighed like a gajillion pounds. They had to like set them in with a crane.
Yeah.
And what happens is the car goes backwards, and then the track itself just flips. So it's just like a revolving sort of thing, and it flips over, and then you go straight forward to continue the ride. That all happens in 6 seconds, which is crazy fast. Because when you're there to then shoot you back, switch the track, and then shoot you forward again takes a lot of precision. So the fact that they're able to get that down every single time is crazy.
It is crazy. I'm going to hop over to the live chat again. And Gigi says, that's like the Indiana Jones ride where it stops, but instead of going backwards, you drop through the floor. Yes. I love those things on rides. Even if it's a ride you've been on a bunch of times, it's still fun. Like, it's still fun every time. That little bit, like that surprise element. I don't know.
Well, and like to add these unexpected parts, like these little unexpected things where it's like, oh, what's going to happen? And then they throw you for a loop and you're like, whoa, holy cow. It went like just to get that out of you that first time, it just locks you in as like a fan forever.
Absolutely. The Yeti.
Yeah. So
the Yeti?
Yeah, okay. We could go on and on and on about the details in the queue and everything, but there's just too much to talk about.
This could be one. I could see it down the road if there were more people asking about it. This could be one that could have another episode because there is a ton of really cool information, and they had, as we will get into, and Stefan found a lot of really good stuff. They had a lot of things come up when they were doing the ride.
Yeah. So a lot of details we could go through, but for the sake of time, we can't dig into all of it.
We can't dive that deep, okay, you guys?
So the Yeti itself, this is like the star of the show. You hear the cries throughout the ride. I should have wrote it down. I don't think I did, but there's a lot of speakers basically throughout the entire ride, like giving different echoes and things so that you hear the cry of the Yeti. And I was hoping to find some information on what they used to develop the actual Yeti noise, but I couldn't find anything. But that's not to say that a lot of time didn't go into it, because a lot of time went into the design of the Yeti itself. So the Yeti creature that they ended up building, they actually work with a biologist examining primates and just other animals to figure out what would make the most sense to include in its design. So they actually considered like, okay, this beast lives in this area. It has this kind of climate. It's dealing with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, like it's movement. It's like it's
So they put, it wasn't like they just. I mean, you think of a Yeti, everyone has an idea in their head.
Logan, Sully, our youngest. We got him. It was so funny. I bought him this little red sweatshirt with a Yeti, and it was fuzzy on the front last year, and he wanted to wear it every day. And this is not like your kid wanting to wear a blue shirt every day, because I mean, people aren't going to remember. People remember when your kid wears a fuzzy, Yeti shirt. So it was like, Sully in his Yeti shirt, and it was white with all fuzzy. So pasta sauce and but he loves his Yeti. Yeah, Cheeto dust.
So they spent a lot of time on the actual design of the creature itself to make sure that if this thing existed, this is what it would look like, which I think is super cool. Like, they didn't have to do that.
No.
They could have had any number of Imagineers sketch up what they thought a Yeti looked like and just went with that. But they actually spent their time to make it look realistic. So,
excuse me.
In total, the Yeti is 25 feet tall, weighs 4 tons. It's basically the size of an elephant. I really want to see this thing because it sounds crazy impressive. It uses 19 separate functions to provide the motion. So if you see videos of it moving, it's like lunging forward with its arm coming out. It's 19 separate motions that they have programmed into it. And the thing itself, it couldn't stand on its own and lunge forward. They actually have it set up on like 2 booms. So like the creature's here, and then it's connected to 2 booms on the back that move it forward and back to get that motion looking right. And when you see it move, it looks like it's, I mean, we live in the world of, Pandora now, where everything looks crazy real, and I'm sure there's tons of stuff in Galaxy's Edge that looks insanely real. But at the time, this thing, for how big it is,
huge,
and to have it move that smoothly, it just looks crazy. It was, at the time, I don't know if it still is, but at the time, it was the largest, fastest moving figure ever created. and the amount of thrust produced by the cylinders that they use to control it is greater than that of a 747 airplane. So tons of power going into this thing.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine something that, just lurching
trying to
forward.
move it, which, as we'll see in a minute, also ended up being its downfall.
Yes. If you know what we're about to talk about, you should leave a comment, even if you're watching the replay or live. Leave a comment and let us know. But we're about to talk about Disco Yeti.
More of the Yeti. So, as a piece of machinery, this thing is incredible. It's insane. I can't believe they built it, to be honest, because it's just crazy how well it worked and just how big it was, and nothing like it existed ever before. So to animate the creature itself, because all these things have animators, and I think we may have mentioned this again in our Little Mermaid episode, because to animate like Ursula and stuff, there was someone who had to like actually come in and animate the entire figure. Same thing with this.
Yep.
So, and to do that, because it's one guy working with a control board that was actually built in like the 50s or the 60s, but it just gives him more control over the thing itself. He went to the zoo and studied animals, studied like gorillas and monkeys, and to get an idea of like how they moved, like get into the character of how this thing moves. Just another element of realism added to it.
Yeah, and it's incredible because if I went on this ride and just saw, a Yeti, just like a stuffed Yeti there, it'd be fun. It'd be cool. It'd be the same. You could argue that it would be the exact same ride. But what I think people really need to remember is that attention to detail. It's like, no, this Yeti is, as accurate as a Yeti can be, but like they put in time to research it, to see how it would move, to see how a creature would move. All of those things are what add up to all these details that make Disney so special.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we mentioned time and time again, is that all of these details they put into it, it's stuff that you won't even notice. You don't notice it going in. You'll notice if it's gone.
Right.
So,
and they all add up, little by little by little.
Every little piece adds up to this incredible experience where it is like one of the most immersive roller coasters you're ever going to ride, because it takes you, it takes you into a town that looks like you're in that actual town, because they basically bought half the town to move over and set it up.
All those props, yeah.
And then and then you see this creature that doesn't exist technically, but it sure looks like it does, because it looks like something that would live there, because they put the time, the research, and the effort into it, and just the amount of like aging details they put on things. It just, everything adds up, and it overall it's just an incredible ride.
Yes, like you can't work out once and be in great shape. You got to do it over and over again. You can't eat once. It's the same, little by little.
So after all of this work that they somehow managed to cram into only 3 years, 3 years to do all of this. Like, after researching everything and laying it all out, I hadn't looked at the timeline yet, and I thought, like, okay, so this took like what, 5, 6, 7 years to build, and it's only 3 years.
Which, compared to a lot of other rides that we've talked about, and a lot, of course, we haven't yet, is like nothing. Like,
when you talk about the time it took to build like Space Mountain or something, which doesn't, there's not. It's a cool ride, but when you compare it to this, with the amount of detail and effort it took, holy cow! Like and this
was a brand new beast. But really, it was a brand new thing to do something like the Yeti then. So
yeah. So after all of this, they somehow managed to open on schedule on April 7th, 2006. The ride is an immediate success. It does what it's supposed to. It draws people to the park. Yeah. People want to ride it. They had a huge campaign around it. In fact, that documentary I watched, the Discovery Channel one, they co-funded the trip to Mount Everest for them to gather all this information. So they were, and that's another thing that Disney does really well. You see a company like Disney and you think, okay, they have all the money in the world.
Right. Powerhouse.
Yeah. They're just throwing money left and right. In every single one of these that we do, we find that there's a million ways that they don't cut corners, but creatively save money.
They are smart. I said it before, and it's so true. It's when you think of someone that that's not necessarily rich, but someone who's wealthy and good with money, a lot of times those people do certain things frugally, or maybe they'll buy things on sale, or they'll, not live in a lavish home, or not drive a fancy car. And it's because they're good with their money, and Disney is good with their money.
Yeah. And that's really all it is. They're just good with money. So it's not that they make all the money. I mean, they do, but
Yes, they do.
they are also really, really smart with it. And having Discovery Channel
Repurposing
co-sponsor this
things.
stuff
Yeah.
to make this incredible ride, but also to pump the promotion into this ride, which they needed to be a success because they needed to pump up numbers at the park. It was just genius. They also had I forget what they called it, but they like took over the side of a building in New York where like they put like a Yeti image on it, and they had like
Times
Mickey and Minnie
Square.
and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they had this. They spared no expense in terms of advertising and promoting of the ride. They wanted people to come see it. They wanted people to ride it, and it all paid off because it was a huge success.
Yes.
Everyone
From
loved
go.
it. It's won multiple awards. I don't know how official these awards are, but as far as like best coaster of the year and most innovative, this and that, it won everything. So it all paid off. That is until a couple of months later, after the ride opened, it was discovered that the base of the Yeti had cracked. Now, remember at the beginning, we talked about how it was three separate structures: the mountain itself, the roller coaster, and then the base for the Yeti. Which
The
makes
Yeti
sense.
is the size of an elephant. And
Yeah,
weighed
because
huge.
the Yeti, they knew it was going to be this giant thing. It was going to have all this power. It needed its own support. So after a few months, they realized that it was starting to crack. It wasn't holding up to the power of the movement of the Yeti, and this caused a serious problem.
Yeah.
Now, I couldn't find a lot of detail on what the actual issue was. The best explanation I found of it was that it was an error in some of the computer software they used to develop the ride. So the stuff that made it super efficient and made it possible to, build everything much faster than usual, apparently caused an issue in the curing time of the concrete and the other parts of the support base, so that it wasn't cured correctly and it wasn't as strong as it was supposed to be. So then after a little bit of time, it caused this thing to crack. And then after looking at that, they realized, okay, if the Yeti keeps moving,
Yeah.
it's going to be catastrophic. The whole thing's going to come like crashing down. It's going to be horrible. So they had to come up with a solution. Now, they couldn't just outright fix it, and I'll explain that in a moment. So what they decided to do was switch it into B mode. Now, when it's moving, when it's in full motion, that's called A mode. B mode is when it's just its arm is outstretched. It's kind of like in its last moment, like when it's like reaching for people, and it's just frozen in that position. So to give it the illusion
Effect,
of movement, they added a strobe light effect.
Oh.
Drop my notes.
Papers.
They added a strobe light effect, so that as you're passing by it and the strobe light is going, it appears to be moving. Now, it isn't, obviously, but that is the solution they came up with to give it the illusion of movement, which I think is pretty creative. Like, honestly, everything that they were handed, they came up with a pretty good solution.
And that is where we get the name,
Disco Yeti.
which we do have a shirt. That's our shameless plug,
Yes.
Small World Shirts Co. We have a Disco Yeti shirt. So if you're interested in that, and yeah, let us know.
So if you hear Disco Yeti, that's what people are talking about. They're talking
Strobe
about
light
the strobe light
on
on the Yeti.
Yes.
So going back to fixing it, because you hear people say like, oh, it's a shame, they should really fix it, they should fix it, they should do this. And some people have even gone as far as to say like, oh, they just don't want to spend the money to fix it. Well, think back to the beginning of this when we were talking about how this thing is built. It's three separate structures intertwined into each other, not meant to be taken apart, meant to be maintained and maintained, sure, but not taken apart to
Completely.
take out a critical element of it. The outside is concrete and plaster, and then you have the rail structure around it, and all the support beams and everything. In order to fix this thing, to take it out and then rebuild the base, you have to take the whole mountain apart. So this thing would be shut down for like another, probably longer than it took to build it,
Yes.
probably like 4 or 5, 6 years to tear it apart. Because think about it, you gotta have to take the thing apart, fix that, and then rebuild it. So I don't even know what they would do to
Yeah.
actually fix it.
Well, the whole thing is just such a heartbreak. When we were talking about this, it was imagine having worked on a ride. This was you're just super passion project. You're so excited. And then it works. It works and people love it. And you are just celebrating and excited and everything is great. And then a couple months later,
Yeah.
That is a heartbreak right there. So.
And I know these guys don't need our pity or anything, but go watch that Discovery Channel documentary because
I'll try to link it in the description box of the replay.
It's heartbreaking. When you watch these guys, how excited! When you hear Joe Rohde talk about this thing when they were first building it, because they built it in California and then moved it to Florida to be put into this ride. When they're in California and he's talking about it, he is so excited. Everyone involved is so excited about what they have created, what they have built, and the fact that it works and how amazing it is. And
they were in the celebration phase. It was up. The ride was there.
And then there's a section in that documentary where they watch the first people ride through it, and they're so happy and excited. And it's just they poured all this sweat and blood into it, and they're just so excited about it, and with good reason. It was amazing.
A huge feat.
And then to have it break because the base didn't cure correctly. Nothing that they did. The thing works.
Yeah, they did their job.
The thing they built works and it's incredible. But the thing that it's sitting on broke. So it doesn't get to work anymore. It has to suck for them. It's gotta be horrible. And I felt so bad.
It sucks for them, but really,
I feel so bad for them because they were so excited about it and just so enthused and happy, and then for this to happen, it's oh man, that's a bummer. So, Joe Rohde has been quoted. It was at one of the D23s, I think, that he will fix it. He said, I will fix the Yeti eventually. Man, how he's gonna do it, I don't know.
I think that they could maybe, now that they have Pandora and stuff and people are over there, it's they could kind of if they could figure out a way to be okay, you won't miss it as much because you have plenty of other things. You've got Galaxy's Edge, you've got Toy Story Land, you've got, at Pandora, of course, if we want to talk about specifically Animal Kingdom, but there's lots of brand new things at Walt Disney World right now. Now, come on. Let's see it. Come on, Joe.
Yeah, because they had a few things working against them because they had the fact that it was the main attraction. It was the biggest draw to the park itself. Yeah. So to close it down would have just killed attendance, which they can't risk, especially when they have a working solution in place. The other thing is...
kind of fun. The Disco Yeti thing is kind of fun. And we liked it enough to make it into a shirt, but it's a fun little quirk, but very sad.
The other thing they have going against them is that they built this whole thing to look aged and to look old. And as it actually gets older, it just adds to the effect. It looks more real. So it's not something another ride where they have to shut it down to repaint
it up.
to give it some spit polish and shine it up and make it look new again. As it gets older, it just looks better. So there's no natural, unless something breaks, there's no real natural point where they can be okay, well, let's use this as an opportunity to fix this.
Yes.
It just keeps working. So yeah, unfortunately the Yeti does not work. It has not worked in over a decade, I guess.
Yeah, leave us a comment if you are watching the replay or if you're watching us live. Let us know if you have ridden this, and also if you possibly were there the first few months and you rode it while it was working, and then of course if you've ridden it with Disco Yeti, let us know that as well. But I would just be curious to see if anybody was lucky enough to get to ride it while it was all working.
Yeah, so hopefully one day they will get it working again. Not anytime soon. But now we are entering the fun fact lightning round. Oh, come on.
I was able to... Oh. There we go.
Fun fact lightning round.
I might take that over next week. I was able to share this video out while we were talking and not look too many. Okay. All right. Fun fact lightning round. You ready?
Yes.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay.
So, Expedition Everest. Let's go for some fun number facts because everyone loves numbers. It has 1,800 tons of steel, 18.7 million pounds of concrete,
18.7 million pounds. Okay.
2,000 gallons of stain and paint, which is something we didn't even touch on. The paint that they used to add that forced perspective, they added I think they said they had like 7 different shades of gray to put on it to give it like the sense that it's like further away, that parts of it are further away than the other parts. And it has 200,000 square feet of rock work, which is those chips we talked about.
Square feet. That's incredible.
Those 6 foot by 6 foot squares.
Think of an average house,
200,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, just insane. And they did it all in 3 years. Like it still blows my mind that they were able to get all of this incredible work done in that amount of time. When the train approaches the ripped up part, the part where right before it goes backwards. If you look around, you'll notice there's a bunch of like scrunchies and like hair ties and hair bands thrown everywhere, and it's like this weird tradition where people will like throw them off at that point. I don't know why. We've never been on it, so I've never seen it. So like there may be other stuff there too, but apparently there's a large number of hair-related products sitting.
Before I go backwards, I want my hair back.
Yeah, you would think. Maybe it's on the wrist.
Well, yeah, they take it off. I don't have a hairband right now, but I have a bracelet. All right. So it's not really Everest. So this is interesting. Fact. So though the ride name suggests that you'll be exploring Mount Everest, guests are actually traveling through the Forbidden Mountain, which if you remember at the beginning, that is the entire name of the ride. It is Expedition Everest Forbidden Mountain, and the Forbidden Mountain was created by Disney Imagineers as part of the storyline. Mount Everest, however, is part of the model on the far right-hand side of the ride. So it's not actually Mount Everest that you are going through.
It's like the mountain adjacent.
Yes.
To Mount Everest.
Mountain adjacent.
Yeah, it's mountain adjacent. We mentioned before that, Disney has lots and lots of mountain themed rides. They actually have over 20 mountain themed attractions. And Expedition Everest is the tallest of them. It stands at 199 feet. It would have been taller, but just like everything else in the parks, they want to avoid that air traffic regulation of having to put a blinking light on the top of it. So it can only go so high.
Yes.
But it was I don't know if it's still,
it's taller. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it still is.
A lot of people will talk about how Cinderella Castle is the tallest, which in Magic Kingdom, yes, it is. But this is Animal Kingdom. And,
yes. Yeah. Far away, you can't compare the two, so nothing is going to like overpower the castle.
Yes.
Now, we've never been on the ride, but having been to Animal Kingdom, to see the mountain, like what they pulled off is incredible because it looks like a giant mountain just sitting there. And to see it from any point of the park, it looks huge. Like, it looks enormous. I remember seeing it. I can't remember exactly. I think we were going to see the Lion King show. I think that's when I was looking at it. And we were going over a bridge. And just seeing it off in the distance and thinking, holy cow, where are we? Like, that one landmark just transports you to a completely different world. Like, you go from being like in a theme park where you're like, oh, this is cool, to feeling like you are somewhere foreign and different and new. Like it just completely immerses you in the entire park. That in and of itself is, even if it wasn't a ride, if it was just a thing they built to do that, to add that effect, it's incredible. The whole thing is incredible.
I am going to hop over to the live chat. If you're watching the replay, I am hopping over. We do these live streams each week, and when people are commenting live, we will respond. We'll respond to your comments on the replay as well. But Gigi said, I wanted to ride it, but it was down when I went to Disney. When were you there, Gigi? Do you know what year it was? Curious. But yes, we have not been on it either, so we hear you. We hear you, girl.
And that is Expedition Everest.
That is Expedition Everest. We did it.
I'm sure there are some things I'm missing because there's a lot of this is one of those rides that just has a lot of random little facts, things that don't tie into the overall narrative.
Chronological or anything, yeah.
Because I wrote down a lot of just random ideas and facts and things. But it was all stuff that I just couldn't really tie in a way that made sense. But yeah, man, as far as just a feat of human engineering, this thing's incredible. Like the fact that
It's
they pulled this
amazing.
off and made this, it's crazy.
I will link one in the description box, but definitely it is worth watching the point of view. If you haven't watched those, they're fun in general, but this one's really cool. And also, if you like these Disney deep dives, if you like these episodes and this show, please, please give this video a thumbs up and share it out. It would really mean a lot to us if you shared it out, especially if you have people who like Disney in your life or groups or, wherever. Don't get in trouble posting somewhere you're not supposed to, but we would really appreciate that. It would mean a lot to us. And Gigi said that it was 2013 when she was there. Okay, that's interesting. So there must have been like some kind of maintenancing or something happening, which of course, that'll happen from time to time.
Yeah, exactly.
But we want to thank the Live Place, Dean, and the Live Place. That is where we stream. We stream here on YouTube, but he also does a lot of amazing family-friendly and Disney-related content. So if you've not checked out theliveplace.com, it will, of course, be linked. But thank you so much to Dean and the other amazing streamers. We really appreciate that. And we really want to continue to get, now that the kids are back in school, more involved in that community. So we're really, really grateful to be there. So definitely check it out and see if you can find some other shows to watch. It's really fun. And we want to thank you for watching and participating. It means a lot to us. We have a lot of fun doing this together, and we appreciate when you comment and when you watch and share.
Yeah, and let us know what you want to hear about next, because otherwise we're just going to pick random stuff.
Yes. So yeah, that is actually, yes, let us know in the comments, or you can find me, LeahTackles, on Instagram, and you can find Stefan
at Small World Shirts Co.
on Instagram. Yep, which are going to link them both. So you will have the links to those. So you can just shoot a message on there. No big deal. Let us know rides you're interested in. I know that Gigi, you're interested in Indiana Jones. So yes, we
that
hear
is coming for sure. That's a big one. There's a lot of information on that.
And because we are real people with, our jobs and our children and our stuff, sometimes we try to figure out what weeks, and then we want to do, obviously with like Halloween, you might have some ideas of things we might want to cover.
Yes.
But yeah, so let us know, and we're always ready to take your ideas and suggestions. Also, let us know shirt ideas you want to see and share those. We are really trying to get Small World Shirts Co. off the ground. Gigi bought a shirt, so thank you so much for that,
yes,
Gigi. It means a lot to us. We really appreciate you very much. She's watching the live with us right now. But that is it for tonight, guys. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope that you have a magical day.
And we'll see you real soon.
Bye.
Bye.